place
What
that
if you
was
lived in
filled with
prehistoric
dangerous
Australia?
and terrifying megafauna. This was a time of giant kangaroos, mega marsupial lions, super long snakes, and terrifying birds. If you think Australia is scary today, just wait until we go back 100,000
Bro,
years.
Australia be having
Almost
kangaroos,
everything wanted
damn,
you dead.
giant
But
spiders and
humans
stuff,
did
bro.
manage to live side by side with
crazy.
these creatures and survive. But
I can't imagine
how?
pulling up to a kangaroo,
In this
bro.
episode, we'll explore how humans survived during this era and whether or not we were the cause of these creatures' extinctions. This is What If, and here's what would happen if you lived in prehistoric Australia. You've arrived in the midst of the late Pleistocene era, which ran from 126,000 to 12,000 years ago. Once you land on the Australian shores, you'll be met with some massive and terrifying beasts. Let's take a look at
Imagine
some
a
of the
big ass
most
lizard in your
terrifying
bed.
ones.
Your bed on you woke up.
Don't look now, but behind you is the Diprotodon, the biggest marsupial that ever roamed the earth. This particular specimen is coming in at 3.8 meters long and 1.8 meters high. It weighs as much as a car. Its big head comes with an enormous mouth,
I'd be so
powerful
cooked, bro.
jaws, and upper incisors
I don't think there's anything we
the
could
size
possibly
of
do if we
bananas.
just showed up right there.
It uses all these to maintain its diet, but would that include you? Well, good news, you'll be safe from this guy because the Diprotodon is a herbivore, one that eats an unbelievable amount of fibrous plant matter, including branches, leaves,
Bro, they gonna be my
shrubs,
new
and
dogs.
stems. Up to
I've
100
recruited 'em.
kilograms of plant matter on a daily basis. This binge eating had a huge impact on the environment, but in a good way. The Diprotodon would eat and of course, poop, dispersing plant seeds far and wide. Because this creature ate so much food, it needed to have a pretty massive head. If it hadn't been for one odd evolutionary trait, it might not have been able to lift it up off the ground. The Diprotodon was lucky enough to have a skull full of air pockets, making it much lighter to lift. They lived all over Australia, except Tasmania. Some scientists believe there's a possibility they might have been migratory creatures. If that's true,
That makes
they would
sense.
have been the only marsupials to behave that way. Today, humans migrate to Australia from all over the world. Except nowadays, when we're traveling there, we don't need to worry about megafauna. We just need to worry about really long flights and changing time zones. You know, if I traveled from Toronto, Canada
What's like the
to
craziest animal
Sydney,
they have in Australia?
today, I'd be crossing around 16 time zones. By the time I got off the flight, how would I have any idea of what time it was? Sure, most days I'd just check my smartphone for the accurate local time, but not on a special day like today, because today I'm going to use this incredible sundial I just received in my latest Curiosity box. Every 3 months, I get a new Curiosity box delivered to my studio, and I'm always so excited to see what's inside. Created by Michael Stevens, a fellow science YouTuber from Vsauce, this subscription, it's a huge goanna. This gigantic monitor lizard, called the Megalania prisca, is the largest land-based lizard of all time.
Like an alligator?
It was a ferocious reptilian predator, a carnivore
Aren't,
that ate large mammals,
dinosaurs pretty much
snakes,
reptiles?
birds, and other reptiles, so it's probably a good idea to stay clear of this guy. This lizard could grow as long as 5 meters and weighed up to 575 kilograms.
What are you doing if that thing
If
pulls
you look
up on you,
closely
bro?
at its snout, you'll see an unusual crest. This snout housed some scary sharp teeth that curved backward. This goanna was both an ambush predator and a scavenger.
Damn, how
It
fast
would
was
lay
it, though?
in wait for its next victim. Innocent
shit-
kangaroos, deer, wild pigs, maybe even you. Then it would pounce. Its toxic saliva would first cause an infection and shortly after, death. This guy is still around today. Sort of. You can see relatives of the Megalania in reptiles like the Komodo dragon. But its closest relative is another lizard in Australia, the Parenti. At least this one isn't as massive.
Damn,
If you
imagine
think this
16
giant
feet of
lizard is
that.
bad, just wait until you see what we have next. Time to check out another beast. This time, a non-venomous one. A giant snake called the Wonambi. Wonambi like to live in the cool and dry regions of Australia. Now, I just told you it's non-venomous, but you'd probably want to stay away from it anyway. Like the Megalania, it was an ambush predator, and it liked to kill its prey by squeezing them to death.
Okay.
If you're wandering around prehistoric Australia,
I'm trying to see how big it
you might
was.
encounter it hanging out by a watering hole. Usually it goes after kangaroos and wallabies who are stopping by for a drink. The
Kangaroos?
Wonambi like to wrap its 4
big
to
was it?
6 meter long body tightly around you
20
until you
feet?
stop breathing. Luckily, these snakes aren't around
20
anymore.
feet?
So
20 feet. Buildings, shipping cartons, giraffes. Limousine. God damn.
these
I see-
megafauna
if y'all
were
seen a
living
video
in
when that dude
Australia
was,
all
had a
throughout
snake
the
on his,
Pleistocene
shirt?
period, from
I'm scared of that.
2.5 million years
You
ago.
talking about a 20
But
feet version
if
of
we
that?
fast forward 40,000 to 60,000 years ago, something terrible happens. The megafauna go extinct. Just a little before the extinctions occurred, a new apex predator arrived on land. Was it some new, terrible, and scary beast? No, it was just us humans. If you were around during this time, you would have been part of the earliest Australians on the continent. They arrived maybe 65,000 years ago, coming by boat to northern Australia and then quickly spreading around the coast and into the interior. Which brings us to two important questions. First, how did humans survive these dangerous megafauna? Well, early humans were armed with two critical weapons to survive living amongst these creatures: fire and hunting weapons. Scientists have found megafauna remains while looking at old
Man,
Aboriginal
that must have been
settlements.
ballsy as hell. I
One
couldn't
of the
imagine.
weapons of choice
Even if I had
to
a
fend
spear,
off these megafauna
I'm not pulling up
may have
on
been
these things,
sharpened
bro.
bones. But that's not all. It's also suspected that these early humans developed the use of nets to capture some of these creatures. Since they moved so fast, it would have been difficult to spear them effectively, but flinging a net over them, well, that could be an easy and effective way to slow them down and then go in for the kill. To further protect yourself during this time, you'd want to build a shelter.
Okay.
Rock and bone shelters were a popular choice in prehistoric Australia because they could prevent animals from getting in and eating you. These structures were also essential to protect you from the environment. Australia during this time had different temperatures, geographies, and climates. Humans mostly settled around the coast, which had savanna-like climates and occasional
Oh,
rainfalls.
okay, they can eat fish and
if
stuff
you
like
moved
that.
inland, you'd be met with harsher, desert-like regions. There were limited water sources, made for a tough environment for humans to survive in. But less water actually benefited the early humans, since it made it easier to travel all around Australia. Land bridges were exposed, helping humans migrate to new places and survive these terrifying megafauna. What other animals did they have to survive against? Well, hopefully something a little friendlier this time. If you try going into a lake for a swim, you might encounter the ruthless freshwater crocodile. This giant beast was up to 5 meters long and was nicknamed the Swamp King. Its
Damn.
prey were creatures coming for water at mud springs or innocent humans stopping for a swim. The freshwater crocodile was built to be a ferocious predator. It had deeper and wider jaws than modern saltwater crocodiles. Today, its closest living relative is the Indo-Pacific crocodile, which can grow up to 6 meters. But the old Swamp King was bulkier than this modern-day croc and had a bigger snout. Okay, let's get away from this croc and go find... Any guesses? Yeah, another terrifying creature that wants to kill you. And this one might be the scariest yet. If we swoop down into one of the ancient forests, we're going to see a pretty unusual lion-type predator, the Thylacoleo. This wasn't like a lion you'd find at the zoo. It was a carnivorous marsupial, like a cross between a kangaroo and a deadly cat, fully equipped with a pouch to carry its young. It's known as one of the most destructive predatory beasts ever, and there's a good reason for that description. Scientists have found that the Thylacoleo had a bite strength of 250 kilograms. Though it scavenged when it got a chance, it was an ambush predator, equipped with some of the fiercest teeth ever seen for effective killing. Large serrated upper incisors and enlarged cheek teeth helped it tear apart its prey. Plus, like my cute little house cat, it had a thumb claw in a sheath. But unlike my kitty, this claw was very large and may have been used to disembowel its victims. With these teeth and powerful bite, the Thylacoleo could have taken on almost any creature. If you encountered this predator in the Australian outback, there's one saving grace. It wasn't the fastest runner, so if you see this beast, get running. Run as fast and as long as you can, and don't try to climb up a tree because this beast was well equipped for that. Now, there's a lot of debate as to what this creature's total diet consisted of. Its ancestors were herbivores, so
imagine pull up on
there's
that
some
thing. They said they can
speculation
eat
that
anything
this
pretty much.
marsupial lion
You're cooked.
also enjoyed a salad with its steak.
I'm running as fast as I can,
Other
bro.
yummy parts of its diet.
You're cooked in the water. You're cooked with the alligator. You cooked in the land with that, bro.
Included
I'm gonna
crocodile
stay. I'm
eggs
gonna be a
and
homebody.
bone marrow.
If I was here, I'd be a homebody.
Under the
I'll take care of the
melon
kids.
hypothesis, some
I'm
have
not going out
speculated
hunting,
that
bro.
the Thylacoleo ate native cucumbers.
Imagine 3 of those on you.
Somehow I just can't imagine this beast feasting on a jar of garlic dills. Thylacoleo
And none
didn't have
worse
the
than
kind of
getting eaten
grinding
alive,
teeth
bro.
we normally see in herbivores, so if it ate the odd plant or the odd cuke, it would likely only have been once in a while. It would much rather dine on you. Okay, let's check out another nightmarish creature.
Damn, bro.
The Thunderbird.
I don't know.
This
Oh my
bird
god, no.
stood over 2 meters high and had these giant hind legs. The only issue? Well, it was also equipped with teeny tiny wings, so
Okay,
it
couldn't fly.
It's kind of cute now that you look at it. This bird weighed a lot, around 220 to 240
Damn.
kilograms. And naturally, its eggs were pretty darn
Don't
heavy
birds
too,
get like
coming in at
hollow?
over 1.5
Don't get like real like
kilograms.
light because they're like hollow
The
inside?
Thunderbird made up
I know
for
they
its
got like
lack
bone
of
and
flight
stuff, but like
by
they don't
being
have
a
like a lot of
super
muscle.
fast runner. Pair that with its powerful beak
Like
and
owls? You seen
would
like
one have
owl
you for
skeleton, bro?
breakfast? Thankfully not, as it was probably a herbivore. Finally, something that doesn't want you dead. Phew. Is the Thunderbird still around today? Yeah, sort of. Its
Ostrich.
ancestors are today's
Oh.
ducks and geese. Oh, how the mighty have fallen.
So you
Now,
talking about big ass
remember,
geese.
There are 2 key questions during this time. We now know how humans survived prehistoric Australia, but we also know that, sadly, the megafauna died out. So the second question is, what made the megafauna go extinct? Is it humans? Or something else? Well, different scientists subscribe to different theories on this. And speaking of which, you should subscribe to our Patreon. There, you can
Funny
watch
as hell.
episodes like this one early. And to one theory, sometimes referred to as the Blitzkrieg theory, the early Australians slaughtered all the animals from the late Pleistocene era. They went extinct within 1,000 years. Those who subscribe to this theory argue that it would have taken a few thousand years for humans to establish themselves.
Yeah, I mean, they would have to
spread out
kill
across
all
the
the-
continent. That's
Well, they're
why
not
we
really
see an
going in the
overlap
water for
between
real,
the
but they have
two.
to kill all those little those
Humans
cat
would have been
ones.
gradually
Damn, my boy
eating and
Foy
killing
is
off these
hard.
megafauna during that time. Killing off the entire species in just 1,000 years?
With spears and
Seems a
stuff.
little wonky. Okay, now let's revisit the Thunderbirds we met earlier because they carry a clue. Scientists have been studying burn patterns on eggshell fossils. Cause them? Humans? Nature? They've concluded that the burns were not from natural fires, so there's some evidence that humans played a hand in these birds' fate.
My boys
And
got
looking
gasoline
at
and
humans'
shit.
destructive behavior nowadays, it's easy enough to believe that it's the humans who were responsible. But there's also evidence disproving this theory. First off, some scientists argue that a lot of the megafauna, maybe up to 85%, were already extinct before humans got there. But most important, fossils of megafauna have been found that date to periods well after humans arrived on the scene. This proves that humans and these giant beasts coexisted for a long time, anywhere from 10,000
Imagine
to
that scene,
30,000
bro.
years of overlap. This
You
indicates
just wake
that
up
while
and you
early
there.
humans
Now you
might
just see
have
these big
hunted
ass
these large
creatures coming at
beasts,
you, bro.
they did it in a
That probably,
sustainable
oh
way.
my god, bro.
If this is true and humans were hunting
So
sustainably, there's got to be something else that was deadly to the megafauna. It's something we're very familiar with today, climate change. As the last ice age began to thaw, it would have had huge implications on habitats. The critical period for Australian fauna would have been around 30,000 years ago. Some scientists who've studied climate change have noticed that things were getting warmer and drier as the ice age came to an end. Let's visit a spot in Australia called Cuddle Springs. Despite what the name suggests, it's not a hot spot for cuddling, but it is a spot where different kinds of megafauna fossils can be found. Comparing fossils from 500,000 years ago with those from about 40,000 years ago, scientists found that the older creatures ate greens that indicated a much wetter climate.
Oh, but
40,000-year-old specimens had to settle for plants that grew in much drier environments. As a result, the later megafauna gave up eating saltbush, a shrub that the older megafauna had enjoyed. These creatures figured out that when there isn't enough water to go around, you need to limit your salt intake. Anyone who's bought the extra large popcorn and small Coke Zero knows that. And this tracks with what we know about the climate. Toward the end of the Pleistocene, Ice Age glaciers melted as the planet warmed. This, in turn, impacted plants and shrubs and affected the megafauna. The drying out of the environment, a higher frequency of fires, and the disappearance of grasslands.
Damn, imagine being a
changes in
human man and you
vegetation
see a forest
may
fire,
have
bro.
led many of these
You don't know what
creatures
that
to
is.
go extinct. The scientists in the Blitzkrieg camp have a response to this view on climate change. They argue that the climate has been going through cold and dry, alternating with warm and wet cycles over and over again for the last 2.5 million years, and yet the megafauna had survived those cycles multiple times. It was only when humans landed on the scene that the megafauna were unable to cope with climate change. So they may have a point. For sure, the argument isn't settled yet. It could be humans who made the megafauna extinct, or it may have been the environment. Or maybe it was
They wouldn't just
something
turn on the humans, just
somewhere
go
in
crazy
between.
on them?
The one thing we know for sure is that humans are powerful predators with an
Yeah.
unmatched ability to impact our environment. We're seeing that today as the temperature continues to rise relentlessly due to human-induced warming. Humans are both incredible creators and destroyers. Okay, next, let's jump over to another time period. Let's go back over 100 million years ago to the Cretaceous period.
We want to watch that.
Think you'd
That's
be able to
insane.
survive there? Well,
I don't know about y'all, but if I got over there, I'd be so cooked. No way I'm surviving.